Hey, Geekscapists, I'm here with my good friends Noah and Victoria. They've got a brand new movie called Blood Relatives. It's out November 22nd on Shudder. I know all you horror fans already subscribe to Shudder. You like watching your streaming horror movies. And they've got a vampire one out for your little vampire tale. And you can watch it November 22nd. It's called Blood Relatives. And what do we want to tell them about this? Because you don't want to totally spoil it for them, but it's I don't know. I don't want to just say it's a vampire movie because it's got elements of things like Logan, and it's got elements of what I
Keep
love.
going. That's a good one.
Well,
Yeah.
here's one that that it second it opened, and I guessed it. I was like, this. They shot this in and around Austin. That's my hometown. I was like, that's Austin. I'm gonna say Near Dark, which is one of my favorite vampire movies.
Ooh. Yeah. Keep going. We'll get you on payroll.
You really are.
Yeah, I've got a lawnmower outside, so I think the less they hear from me, the better. But I mean, Noah, you wrote, directed it, and are the star of it, along with Victoria. Like, what were your influences when you started putting this together? Like, how things coalesce?
Well, I think to describe it in its essence, it is a father-daughter vampire road trip comedy. Which are a lot of things that we like, but we don't always see them together. So I think that's a pretty good description, at least in one line. But listen, I watched Near Dark a million times and was definitely inspired by that. Raising Arizona and Blood Simple, the latter of which is an incredible Texas movie. Paper Moon, which is sort of a classic father-daughter road trip movie. No vampires in that one. But then if we're talking vampires, a little bit of Lost Boys, a little bit of Ganja and Hess. We'll throw in some Martin as another deep cut. I like the deep cuts, but Near Dark is kind of a big bullet point there for us. What do you think, Vic, as far as sort of some of the inspirations or some of the comps for the film?
I mean, you said them all. Like, that's all. I had to learn about the deep cuts, and I'm very new, at least, to the horror, or not horror, but also what I would consider and what I love is kind of horror comedy. And if you're putting it in that genre, I still don't really think that you'll get what you expect if you tried to categorize it just into one, because it has this lovely, like, just heartfelt, not taking yourself seriously, fun journey, which I feel like you don't get a lot when you're obviously watching a movie about two vampires.
Yeah, the movie starts out with Noah's character, and you're kind of on your own, surviving. You're just taking care of yourself, and you look up and you actually fathered a daughter, and she's got vamp abilities too. I think Whistler from the Blade franchise would be like, she's a daywalker in a sense.
Well, that's exactly it.
Around in the sun, right?
And you're when you're making a vampire movie, when you're telling a vampire story, one of the most fun things you can do is start to go through which vampire rules you want to apply, which ones you want to ignore, which ones you want to maybe do a different spin on. And for Victoria's character, for Jane, I kind of went full Blade. I kind of went full Daywalker with her. And I thought, for a real superhero moment, which, Vic, you have a couple of times in the movie, it was only appropriate to give you the Blade rules.
Did that have an influence? Was that the punch influence?
It was. We have a gag in the movie. I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's sort of a moment.
It did make me yell out, "Holy shit!" when that.
Good.
And,
yeah.
Because it's kind of comedic and tempered, and then it's punctuated by some hyper violence very suddenly, and it's awesome. I really, really loved that gag.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad. Yes. It was. I wanted everybody to know that you were a superhero as soon as we could telegraph that. And so, we meet the dad and the daughter, they meet, and of course it's like very strange and conflicted, and we're talking about this vampire stuff, we're trying to work it all out, and there's some fangs and there's a little bit of a confrontation, but it did absolutely have to culminate in everything but a cape and a mask, neither of which is like cool now. Like that, like superheroes don't wear like capes and masks, but I'm an old dad. What can I say?
I'm trying to think too. Like, I guess you got to go a little bit cartoony. You got to go towards the Marvel stuff, which isn't bad. They've put some masks and capes on their characters, but yeah, if you're going for something that has a little bit of grounding and has the hyper violence that you see in a few of these sequences, that's a tough tone to like kind of balance. And so what I really appreciated was that just the structure of the movie, when you introduce a new problem to your character, Noah, and it's like, oh, I got a daughter. Oh, she's showing signs of vampirism. Oh, this is going to let me establish the rules for the audience as I establish the rules for her. There are comic books in the movie. And not only that, a lot of Screeching Weasel, which I'm a big fan of.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I Screeching Weasel was my favorite band when I was 15. I don't know if you had you ever
heard? Why is it
heard...
still not your favorite band? I mean, Victoria, you're the only person under 30 that was that's ever worn a Screeching Weasel shirt, in my opinion. But okay,
I don't think I ever asked you, Vic. Had you heard? Because I mean, you listen to a lot of punk rock. Had you heard Screeching Weasel?
Yeah, I had heard. I remember, but I hadn't really. It was like you were a full introduction for sure. You were like a full like, here's the deal about this. And no, I had many like. I think it was like other deep cut punk stuff, but I was obviously immediately into it.
Geekscape is the second that Victoria's character shows up, and they're saying like, "Wait, where'd you come from? Which relationship did I have that like led to having a child?" And Victoria's character shows up to kind of make things a bit more complicated for Noah's kind of loner, a survivalist character. She's wearing a Screeching Weasel shirt. And I was like, oh, no, she's been a vampire for at least 30 years because all the punks I know, I'm kidding. I'm making a joke, but Screeching Weasel is a deep cut. And I've been listening to them since the early 90s. So yeah. They've been around. And you worked with, I mean, what I've heard, and I've shot music videos for bands like the Mr. T Experience and some of those Lookout bands. So I'm a big fan of that entire scene. You hear that Ben Weasel is how was he to work with?
Well, everything you've heard is a bold-faced lie. He's the easiest guy in the world to work with. He's very sweet. He's very nice. He's a great dad and a great collaborator. I mean, I really was truly obsessed with them, as a teenager, and have remained a fan. And when we became buddies, kind of like, how people do like over the pandemic, like over the internet, over DMs, because I think we both are into some of the same kind of esoteric opera, which also found its way into the movie, specifically like Wagner's Ring Cycle.
And he has a musical that he wrote as well.
And he has a musical that he wrote. I think he's got a couple musicals that he wrote. He's really prolific, beyond just simply Screeching Weasel, the band. And we became buddies, and we started sort of trading material, whether it was songs he was working on or stories, scripts, that kind of thing. He really is interested in screenwriting, and he's really just a creative guy who's like, who doesn't see a difference between picking up a guitar and writing a song and, firing up a word processor and writing a script. And at some point I shared with him Blood Relatives and the concept behind it. And he was really generous with his thoughts and so generous that I kept asking for more and more, until finally I said, could I use some of your music in the movie? Cause there's this sort of punk kid in the movie, and, she sort of is kind of, I don't know, representative of the kind of punk kid I was. What do you think? And so he was really nice about it.
And he, knowing Frank from MTX for many years, I'm like, well, you hear like the stories about Ben Weasel, but like you said, like they can't be all like Ben's just got to be a cool, collaborative, creative dude, and hopefully protective of his material, which is where I think some people were like, oh, but it's like, no, I'm sorry, not everything gets to work that way. Like DIY has a, it's like people just think it's like a free for all and you can just use material. No, Ben should be protective of his material because he's awesome, and it's amazing that you got to collaborate with him because, like you,
Well,
I've
and
been a
what's
fan of
incredible
his since I
about
was
it
a
is that
teenager.
what was so incredible about it is that he is protective of his material. He owns it. So he's able to make, calls like, hey, this guy that I met randomly who made this weird little vampire family film, he's asking to use a few of my songs, and I'm going to go ahead and let him use them at an affordable rate. Just a lot of support on that end. I had to, ask Vic if she was cool with wearing the shirt.
Which I feel like it's like what music I was talking, because I'm like so new to like the filmmaking aspect of everything, and so I was just trying to soak up and learn as much as possible. But music is something I'm really invested in film, and so learning about the process of acquiring that was really interesting. And so I felt like that was so cool to be able to just say, hey, like, these are this is something that you can use, because I feel like it's obviously not normally that easy. So I've just been very, I was, on the sidelines being like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
But anything could be used for research to make your character believable, to get into those shoes. Noah, did you ideally write the concept as something that you're going to act in, or just direct, or like, how did you end up becoming the lead in it? Or was that the design from the start? And also, similarly for Victoria, was there an audition process, or was it something? Did y'all know each other prior to Blood Relatives?
Well, I'll let Vic tell her story about how we found each other, because it was one of those circuitous, happy, but then in retrospect very simple experiences. But to answer my question, the movie was written from a really personal place, and I think that I did the thing that no writer or filmmaker should do, which is I did picture myself going through this stuff. You never want to picture an actor. You always kind of want to just sort of write the character and then hope that you meet an actor who is the right collaborator. But in my case, I sort of felt like the only way I could tell the story was from my perspective. And then when it came time to make the movie, we had a low budget, we had a short schedule, we had a lot of people doing a lot of different jobs all at once, and I sort of felt like the best thing I could do for the movie was to take that job off someone's plate. So I did.
I know I'll be there, so I know I'm going to show up. I guess so.
Yeah, exactly. I knew I was going to be
demands.
there, so might as well make it easy. But Vic had not, I wouldn't say traditional, but she had her own experience getting involved in it.
Yeah, well, it was traditional, but I had never had it wasn't traditional for me. Like I met Josh Rubin, who's one of our producers, on Plan B, this buddy comedy that I did back in 2020. We spent like a night together, and he came on and day played, and it was a really fun, giggly day. We just like hung out and just kind of kept in touch. And he said, hey, I have this, literally like, hey, here's a script. I think you might like it. And I'm picturing you. And I read it. And I think subconsciously, maybe he knew that I would connect with it or something. And in this really weird way. And it was very serendipitous. And before I talked to Noah, like the first time, I like had all these things that I wanted to talk about, and I was like, I have all these bullet points, and I really like, this is really cool. And then we talked, and then it was immediately just like very easy, and we were like, yeah. So anyway, but no, this thing is really cool, right? So yeah, let's do it. And I was like, what? Okay. So it was just something that I hadn't been through, and it made the process really fun and trusting.
Did you audition any actors, or is it just like, yo, let's make a vampire movie with my friends? let's just chill and
No,
hang out.
there were some actors, who, I was not familiar with their work, and so they submitted audition tapes, and that's how we hired them. But in Vic's case, I had seen Plan B, and then I familiarized myself with as much of her work as I possibly could, and it was just so apparent right away, just watching anything that she had done, that she is like the best actor in the world and is completely able to sort of, to do what I think a lot of actors don't think of, which is, you're playing in an orchestra, right? Like you're playing your instrument, which is very specific and very unique, but you're playing it. It's a team sport, to use another analogy. And it's so obvious looking at Victoria's work that she is excited about being parts of those teams. And that's what excites me about being on a set and being a part of a movie. And so when we, just spoke the first time, that connection alone is like, you can really do a lot with that, because you could just start to kind of play right away. You could start to really, you feel kind of like that's what home is, is when you're part of the circus.
And I'm being facetious.
I just threw in, that was like 3 analogies in like 40 seconds.
Orchestra, sports, and the circus. And I'm down. Now it's all combined. What sport would that look like? It
looks like filmmaking, guys. That's what making movies is like. Yeah.
Yeah, you're both the arsonist and the firefighter. You're like creating the problems and then trying to solve the problems. And no, you shot in Austin. You live here in Los Angeles. I don't know where Victoria is, but clearly, yeah, you went to Austin and you found some local actors and put this thing together. How long did it take to shoot? How many days did y'all have on the ground over there?
We had 18 glorious days, which for anyone who knows anything about making a movie is like a third of the amount of time you should have to make a movie. But many great movies are made in that kind of time frame. It was lovely because we were able to hire a lot of people, cast and crew, out of Austin, but we were about an hour and a half outside Austin in Taylor for most of the shoot. So it did feel like sort of summer camp, like we were kind of a little bit off the beaten path. And then of course Vic lives most of the time in LA, like most people in our business, but she's from Texas, not from Austin. You're from Texas, near the coast. Yeah.
So it was the first time that I was working near home. It was awesome.
And Vic, you were saying that you're new to the filmmaking, new to this, but how new? Like, what was your background?
Well,
she's not new at all. She's she's
producerial and directing side, and then just on the other side. I've been professionally acting for 12 years now, but I meant new to really wanting to kind of be involved on the other side of things. And so while we had such a tight-knit crew, like I was able to kind of like just to watch everybody and learn from everybody, which is what I always try to do, because being on set is kind of like the best experience. But it was the first time where I was able to like kind of peek behind the curtains, because there was no network, there wasn't any type of pressure on anything, and so I feel like you sometimes get the best stuff out of that, but you also get more time with people who you're working with, and so that part was new for me. The collaborative, like that collaboration on the other side was really cool. And so I'm a newbie at that, and I was learning about that a lot.
But did you catch the bug? Do you come back from an experience like this, collaborative, like you said, and say, you know what, I've got this little story in my head, I'm going to see how I can expand it and turn it into a bigger story and put it on paper, and I think I'm going to run with this. Did you kind of take a page out of Noah's book?
Yeah, I felt like every moment Noah's like, don't do this. This is don't do this. When in fact it felt like I was like, well, this seems so not like I say this saying like it seems so easy. Like I never felt the pressure of time or anything like that as an actor, but I feel like that's just a good sign of directing. And so, I learned a lot and I was like, hey, well, this seems kind of fun. And it was like, don't do it. But yeah, I definitely want to at least continue like working with people that you like. I think that's
you'll be a better director than I will be than I am.
I feel like
she's
got the bug. You can tell. She's got the bug.
And we will all be better off for it because
sure.
I got to say, like, the way it works on movie sets is like there's a hierarchy, and it's sort of like, you sort of hope for this kind of benevolent dictatorship. But in reality, what it is it's a bunch of people who are kind of the heads of little departments all working together, the grip and electric and, the makeup and hair and wardrobe and, the art departments and all that. And Vic is really the head of the acting department in this case. And so, there is a lot of responsibility, whether you liked it or not, that you took on that will serve you very well when you direct your movies.
I love it.
I can see it happening. And Noah, you collaborate a lot with Ryan Johnson. Geekscape is we have it. We're gonna get you guys back because I'd love to talk about that relationship, Noah. And we can see you here pretty soon in the Knives Out follow up.
Can you? I don't know how much I'm allowed to say or not say, but I will say, don't blink. And if you manage not to blink, I will only say that sometimes art imitates life.
Well, Geekscape is, again, the movie is Blood Relatives. It comes out on Shudder on November 22nd. If you want to, if anything we said is like, oh, that sounds like a great vampire movie, and you should check it out, then check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Especially you horror fans. I know you watch Geekscape. I know you listen to Geekscape. So this one I think is right up your alley. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this, Noah and Victoria. It's been so much fun.
Thanks for having us.
Really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Talk soon.